Mr. Griffith. Okay. Ms. Leger Fernandez.
Hello, Madam Chair. And I'm getting printed an article that I'd like to enter into the record because it addresses an issue that several of our panelists have raised in their amendments. So it addresses an issue that several of you have mentioned, which is the fact that people are being profiled and that what ICE is doing is not consistent with good law enforcement. And it points out, in fact, this is the chief of police in the Twin Cities is saying, my own law enforcement are being pulled over. We know what good policing should look like. We know they are violating our rights, and sadly, they are all people of color. And this is a Washington Post article, it's an Inform article. This is the chief of police. We should be listening to law enforcement in these areas. And he points out that it is eroding trust. So the work that we've all done, Democrats and Republicans, in terms of getting funding for law enforcement, getting funding for cops grants, ICE is destroying that. And none of us are sitting here saying, get rid of this on this dais. That's not where we're arguing, get rid of ICE. We are arguing accountability. And Representative Johnson, your amendments basically say we need to make sure that ICE follows the Constitution. You represent a good portion, and hopefully will continue to represent a good portion of Latinos in Texas. Tell us why you feel it's important to bring these amendments based on what you're hearing from Latinos in Texas about how they're being treated by ICE.
Well, thank you so much for the question. You know, the reality of it is what we're seeing on the ground is an assault against innocent people. It is an attack on people who are minding their own business, who are driving down the street, just pulled over at random. People are afraid. If you're Latino, a woman just this past weekend told me, you know, I am a successful person. I have followed all the rules, but I live in an affluent neighborhood. And I'm afraid to walk in my own neighborhood now without my passport for fear somebody might think I shouldn't be here as an American citizen. And, you know, I went and visited a detention center outside of Dallas. They have 1,100 people there. 700 of them were no criminal record whatsoever. This isn't gang members. This isn't violent criminals. No one is saying that if you commit violent crime in this country that you shouldn't be deported. But what we are saying is that you don't have the right to pull over and gang tackle, yank somebody out of their car for no probable cause, and haul them to a detention center for 3 to 5 days without any ability to contact their rights, without any hearing, without anything at all. And that is what is happening. There's a complete trampling of due process, the rule of law, the constitutional rights that make this country what it is. It separates us from rogue dictatorship countries that terrorize its citizens for power. And that is where we are headed. And communities are terrified across this country. But in states like Texas, that's a minority-majority state, people are scared to death. And that is why I'm here fighting every day to see that we can restore order in this country so that people can truly feel safe again.
It gets me so mad, the idea that it is all right, that the way you look or the way you speak is now becoming a probable cause, right? It is not probable cause. And so your amendments are consistent with enforcing the Constitution. I have similar amendments. I think we should pay them $500,000 because if that's what we're going to pay the senators who had their phone records released per warrant, we should pay these victims the same amount.
Right. I met with a man who has worked as a framer in construction for 26 years in this country, has 4 children born here. And the only reason he was put into ICE was because he was in a traffic stop. Not that he even violated a traffic stop, but he was like in a traffic check. And because he was Latino and didn't have papers, they're kicking him to El Salvador without a hearing, without anything, and leaving his 4 children. Who's going to take care of them? He's terrified of who's going to help provide for his kids. He did nothing wrong except work and add to our economy. And that is what's happening on the streets of this country, and it is not right.
Representative Stansbury, you were not excused from the panel, you were not really allowed to adequately respond to accusations that there is something called the Trump deranged syndrome. I'd like to give you the opportunity now.
Thank you, Congresswoman. I think what I would like to say, if it's okay, is to just add on to what my colleague was saying. I represent very humble communities in New Mexico, Albuquerque, and 10 rural counties. And I was home over the weekend, and I literally had hundreds of people come to speak to me. People are frightened right now. I had a mother with her child come and tell me that she's afraid that her child is going to be kidnapped from her preschool. Right before I walked into this hearing, one of my best lifelong friends texted me and said, "Are my children going to be abducted?" One of my best friends that I grew up with. That's what's happening in this country right now. So, Madam Chair, and to others on the committee who willfully are believing that somehow we are elevating these issues because we dislike the president or we dislike his policies, we're elevating the voices of millions of Americans who are afraid that their democracy is slipping away and that their children are going to be kidnapped and taken away from them. That is why we are raising these issues, because it is about the safety and the future of this country, and that is what we're trying to raise accountability about. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I ask unanimous consent to enter into the record the article, ICE targeted off-duty police officers in Twin Cities, local police say, dated January 21st, 2026. It's all over in places, but this is a Washington Post article, and I quoted from it earlier.
Without objection.
And with that, Madam Chair, I yield back. I mean, I think we will continue to hear more of this in the next panel.
Thank you, Ms. Leger Fernandez. Seeing no other persons wishing to ask questions, the panel is dismissed.